One television series and 7 movies precede Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. All of this is streaming on Paramount Plus. I did a refresher, and now it's time for a retrospective. Now, of course, this entire franchise is based on a very popular television series. It premiered in 1966 and went for 7 seasons, and tonally and aesthetically, it's very much a product of its time, but it does make for entertaining TV. It's worth checking out just to see where this all began. At least watch the pilot episode. Personally, this first installment is one of my favorites. It's the most grounded film in the franchise, but that works in its favor. It doesn't really become an action film until the very end, mostly playing out like a Hitchcock-styled espionage thriller, and amid all of this, it still has director Brian De Palma's creative stamp all over it. Mission Impossible 2 would punch up the new millennium high-octane action, and at times it is very much to this movie's expense. Plot-wise, Ethan Hunt tends to take a back seat so it can put focus on the infiltrated romance between the villain and the female lead. A big description for a lot of the chase sequences here is that it looks like the cars and motorcycles are dancing. But beyond the nostalgia, notably how as a teenager I loved Limp Bizkit redoing the Mission Impossible theme, this at various moments still feels like a John Woo movie, even if it's not his best work. Mission Impossible 3 would be a big reset. It would start to plant the seeds for what this franchise would become. One of the grittier, darker early installments, Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a great villain here, and by putting a lot of focus on Ethan Hunt's personal life, it would start to introduce narrative elements that would become an arc throughout the rest of the series. Now, Ghost Protocol is a little cheesier in my opinion, and when it comes to the team, you really feel the absence of Luther, who's just relegated to a cameo at the end of this film. But there's a lot of spectacle, exotic locations, and what I feel was the official introduction of a lot of crazy stunts that Tom Cruise would start doing through the rest of these movies. But I feel this franchise would fully pick up by Rogue Nation. The full circle shape that this franchise would start taking began here. Action-wise, I love the underwater heist sequence and the motorcycle chase, and it would introduce who is perhaps the most menacing villain in this franchise, Solomon Lane, which is why I love how much Rogue Nation goes directly into Fallout, which is my favorite installment in this franchise. This is definitely the darkest Mission Impossible movie. It keeps you on the edge of your seat from start to finish and knows how to balance out a certain nostalgia that makes it feel like a 70s action flick, as well as being a great piece of modern blockbuster filmmaking. And in terms of being a good action movie, Dead Reckoning does check all the boxes, but it does reflect the convoluted nature that certain plot elements would feel like at this point in the franchise. There are scenes here where dialogue is being used to establish the conflict, and they do feel like filler, but again, when it comes to what these movies are intended to deliver, entertaining action, this movie definitely gave me that, and I appreciate it for that reason.